Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here, and I'm back with Rob Hill for an audio commentary, and this time it's on the 1979 masterpiece, Alien. So folks, if you wish to sync this commentary with your own copy of the film, bear in mind this is the theatrical cut, put the timestamp to 0 on your Blu-ray or NTSC DVD, and press play now. So the film opens with the really old Fox logo from 1953. Very odd they chose to do that. Maybe some sort of nostalgic thing for the studio, or perhaps the director or producers. But Lucas would do the same, and that same year Fox would produce a new logo that wouldn't be used in Alien, or would it be used in Empire Strikes Back? It's very strange. Now, also the opening title is very famous, produced by Richard Greenberg and Steve Frankfurt. They'd done the marketing on Alien and come up with a tagline, and then that will sort of be translated over to Alien. Richard Greenberg Associates, him and his brother had done Superman the movie the following year. No, the year before, sorry. And would also continue doing a bunch of movies during the 80s, and most famously like The Untouchables. You can find a list of their kind of credits on YouTube, or not YouTube, but on random websites who screen captured quite a few of their titles. But as the film sort of starts, we have this kind of eerie version of the Jerry Goldsmith theme to Alien, which is originally was a bit more kind of lush and a bit more kind of his traditional kind of music, but they felt it was a bit too much, and he wanted him to dial it back and make it more eerie and creepy, and he came up with this new theme in about 5 to 10 minutes. What I think this score beautifully does, actually, I think Alien is one of the only movies I remember seeing when I was younger that gave space a very threatening outlook. You know, where Star Wars and Star Trek, you had this kind of romantic, kind of adventurous kind of look to space, even though you're seeing just blackened stars, but the music was very much more uplifting. With Alien, it was like scary, like space is like you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, it's menacing, isn't it? It's really, and maybe as well because Scott wasn't too pleased with how rich and upbeat the score was. What wasn't re-recorded or changed, the original Goldsmith stuff apparently was dialed right down, so quiet that I think that adds to it as well. The fact that the sound effects kind of take precedent over the music, and it's dead eerie.
As we see with Nostromo there, it sort of gives you a little bit of factual information that it's a mineral ore, being about 20 million tons of it back to Earth. I presume it's like an energy source. We don't know what the state of Earth is. It seems to be kind of okay. Everyone seems to want to get back home. But you said there's quite a few theories of what it actually is.
Well, I've always been confused because, as you say, the official line is the Nostromo is essentially a tow ship pulling back from distant space a load of ore. And to my mind, that would mean that it would be like that the shape of the thing it was towing would be some kind of container, but it looks just like an oil rig what it's towing, and it is when you dig into it. What the Nostromo also did was take an ore refinery out to, I can't remember the name of the planet it's coming back. Was it Thaddeus or something? This crew's job was initially to take a refinery, to tow a refinery out to this planet, and they're bringing it back now as well, clearly. But the line is that it's ore they're bringing back, but when you see it, it's clearly not a container, it's clearly a refinery. So I've always been confused as to, and I've always wondered whether anyone knows the secret to this.
Do you think maybe they've obviously all they're doing is transport? They're not actually doing any kind of the digging or the hard work, are they?
That's the official. That's what's revealed in the background information. But you never know, do you? My guess would be that it was originally they were towing back a refinery, and then they decided to change it, post shooting to maybe make them more grunt-like and more basic. Towing a load of ore is somehow that's a schlubbier job than towing a refinery. So maybe they changed it. Maybe they changed in post what the idea was.
Do you find, like in the film, when they actually do sort of venture out to find the alien, they actually walk into that sort of refinery area?
Well,
or was it just the front piece?
That's the other thing. Yeah, so I think that, and I've always been confused about this, and I could be completely wrong, and hopefully someone will correct me, but I don't think we ever stepped foot in the refinery stroke storage thing being towed. which obviously begs the question: what is, for example, later on when Brett's killed and he's in that big open space with chains and water hanging down. So obviously it raises the question, well, what is that? Because that appears to be like a storage area or something. But it could just be a classic case of Ridley Scott going, sci-fi, I don't give a shit, it's just there. like the waterfall that's there, it's there because it looks good, not because it has to make sense. It could be that.
Yeah, because architecturally it doesn't match what we're seeing here. So
no, you
could imply that it is part of the refinery.
But it could be, but also the Nostromo, if you look at, there's a website that gives you the history of the Nostromo. I think it's actually probably the Alien Wiki, I can't remember now. And apparently it's a repurposed ship. It was originally used for moving stuff about, just not quite so much of it. So that could be the storage, like the old smuggling bay underneath the floors of the Falcon that aren't really used anymore. It could just be a redundant space like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Now this part here is where I believe there's a number of pieces of music in the film that were from the film Freud from 1976, which they would license to use in the film, because when Jerry was doing the music, they preferred the temp music that Terry Rawlings had put in. And obviously Jerry got very annoyed, which you can imagine. But they felt this music was better. They licensed this music, and then people were writing to Jerry saying, "Oh, you're repeating yourself again." He's like, no. It's just, it's that they pay for this piece of music, and you wouldn't know. I mean, I suppose if you listen to the original, what he had composed, and compare the two side by side, because I don't think the actual soundtrack album has what he originally done for this sequence. I think, or maybe I don't know, I can't remember now, but.
There are different versions of it, aren't there? There are, like, famously loads of different versions. And I think I remember seeing a video saying there was one version released with it. It's like 4 CDs or something. And apparently that's got the whole lot, but who knows? Because
Dan O'Bannon said, he bought the soundtrack when it came out, and he saw these kind of wonderful kind of horns that would represent the theme of the alien. But then he said, it would sound quite intrusive in the film. So he kind of understood why they would take it out.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Scott in particular was also very conscious about not repeating any of the tropes and habits of the 1950s sci-fi movies, which would have had that much more bombastic score with a theme for the monster and all that kind of thing. So I think that's a big part of what differentiates this from those more basic movies is the score.
I love this little moment here because it gives you that great cross chatter with all the crew, you're sort of capturing just a mundane kind of moment where they're just like eating their food, but also there's kind of sort of politics come into play with the crew as we progress, where you've got the class system, where I think some of the interviewees had in the documentaries over the years where the Americans don't like to claim they have a class system like the UK, where it's very obvious who's like low, middle, high, top, and upper class. But there is a clear defining moment, isn't there, where you've got the crew in the belly of the ship who are the lower class and the upper class, and just they don't need to do any work if they get paid extra, it's that kind of mentality.
And really, they're all, none of them are upper class essentially, are they? I suppose you're absolutely right in the extent to which it's tiered, but I mean Dallas is. He's not he's not a member of the ruling elite, is he?
He's a very laid-back captain.
And you do get the sense this is a pretty shitty job and a pretty shitty run. It's not what they'd signed up for necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. I always kind of puzzle me this bit because the monitors seem quite far away from where he's sitting. You'd be like squinting, trying, what's that say on the monitor? Can't see.
Space eyes.
Space eyes. Now, the voice of Mother is the lady who, in Superman 3, comes in with the bingo thing. You've been in Daily Planet, she goes, it's winning bingo numbers. She goes into Daily Planet. She's the voice of Mother.
Is she?
Yeah, weird. There will be random Superman trivia thrown in because
it wouldn't be right if there wasn't.
Because I can't help myself, and it's also the 70s, and everyone worked on Alien, Star Wars, and Superman, who were British. So... Veronica Cartwright, she was obviously the year before done Body Snatchers, and she thought she was playing Ripley when she was doing a sort of ready to start shooting, I think it was, or like sort of the dress rehearsal thing, whatever. She didn't know they'd cast Sigourney Weaver.
It's brutal, isn't it? Because she really didn't like the character of that she ended up playing either.
She was supposed to represent the audience essentially and their fears and stuff like that. And Veronica Cartwright, she's good at hysterical. You know what I mean? She's good at crying and screaming and shouting. And I mean, she's she'd already been around for years. She was in The Birds.
Yeah. It's like whenever she's props up in the commentary. There's a cast and crew commentary.
Yeah.
And I love when she starts talking about her memories of chatting with Hitchcock about the nature of suspense. And I think you were like 8 and in one scene. Okay.
Oh man. And we saw like with the miniatures of the Nostromo. This because obviously Star Wars famously used motion control, which was kind of a new way of shooting miniatures, which gave it this kind of, you could do so many layers add to to a shot, because you can just roll the camera back and it repeat the same shot like perfectly. That's right. So, and you could do all these kind of crazy moves with the camera. But this, they just literally had to move the camera slowly past the miniatures at 2.5 frames. But it still looks good. It still looks the same. You're not getting any kind of mad angles. It's just kind of basic kind of shots where it's a close up or it's a wide. But I think they said they had computers, very basic computers, to make the model sort of tilt like that. They needed to do that. So.
But it stops you doing too much, though, as well. I'm a big believer that visual effects artists are too inclined to try and do the next thing rather than perfect the thing that they've got. And I much prefer the more understated effects, and they always date better as well, that aren't trying to do too much. And you don't need to, especially in a film like this, or 2001: A Space Odyssey is another good example, where you don't have to have spaceships whizzing about and interacting with each other, and you don't have to have the camera spinning around them. You don't have to do that, so don't. And your effects will date much better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they still stand up extremely well in this movie. I think the only thing that kind of looks slightly hokey is maybe the odd sort of blue screen shot at the end, when Nostromo kind of escaping. But that's kind of it, really. I mean, it's very consistent throughout. Now, obviously, script by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett.
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. So Dan O'Bannon had obviously worked on Dark Star with John Carpenter, failed comedy sci-fi film, which
failed.
It failed, didn't it? Dark Star. It wasn't particularly successful.
It wasn't very popular, no. But it's.
I like the movie. Don't get me wrong.
I adore that film. I absolutely love it.
I love it when Dan O'Bannon attacks that tomato alien with a broomstick. It's so funny. Get away from me! It's like sort of thing. But yeah, I used to watch that so many times on Laserdisc, and so I thought it was a good movie. But obviously, it didn't work for many people. The comedy's, very, doesn't always work. So obviously, he was upset and annoyed. He then went on to work on June, Jodorowsky's June. That obviously he met Giger at that point. I think he got him involved with that, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he got Giger and half the creative crew on this movie. He met there basically. He essentially just he took the crew that Jodorowsky had assembled in Paris and just said, "Come with me, and we'll make Alien together." And that's what they did. It was Chris Foss was one of them, wasn't he? And Ron Cobb,
because he knew Ron Cobb already. So yeah, obviously him, and I think obviously when June had failed, Ridley Scott was potentially going to do that, but obviously Dan went back to America and sort of crashed on Ronald Shusett's couch for a week, and he was just fed hot dogs all the time. God, he must have terrible bowels. And he came up with this, obviously, I think this is kind of a repurposed Dark Star script, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
With, the novelty of the alien laying something in your chest, which was the thing that I think Ronald Shusett had come up with.
Yeah, it was they got together, and they initially got together writing because Ron Shusett owned Total Recall, what became Total Recall, and he thought Dan O'Bannon would be a good fit to write that up with. But they came to the conclusion that they'd never be able to get a budget for a movie like that together, and that Dan O'Bannon's idea for Alien was cheaper and more sellable and so on. And yeah, he'd literally just decided that on the set of Dark Star, this would make a good horror movie. I want to make a movie that is Dark Star, i.e. a small group of people isolated in a spaceship, and very specifically a small group of working class people, not elite pilot types with all the gear and all the haircut and the attitude and all that, but just normal schlubby people in space. He wanted to basically marry Dark Star to the thing from another world, and
Yeah.
that's what his initial script was. And it's important as well to recognise, I think, that his ambition for it was basically no more than the 1950s movies originally. Anyway, they were going to make it with Roger Corman, and it was going to be much lower budget, much schlockier, and really David Giler and Walter Hill, the producers who had a deal at Fox, who took on Ron Shusett and Dan O'Bannon's script, they did an awful lot to make this a more legitimate proposition before Ridley Scott obviously bowled in and said, I don't give a shit about 1950s sci-fi. This movie's going to have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because Ivor Powell had Ivor, something like that. He'd obviously shown Ridley a bunch of sci-fi movies to sort of get him up to speed on what things are like, and he was like, wasn't interested. And his kind of explanation about what his horror film would be doing with the sci-fi genre would be very similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. Which, he said, isn't he? Scott's only real influences for this were Star Wars 2001: A Space Odyssey and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the 2001: A Space Odyssey reference is interesting because it's exactly the same kind of scenario in that 2001 was written by Arthur C. Clarke, a sci-fi geek, entrenched in sci-fi mythology and probably a little unable to see what that looked like from the outside for a broader, wider audience. And Kubrick came in and just said, again, Clarke recommended a bunch of movies for him to watch. Kubrick watched them, said, I'm doing nothing like any of these things. I want nothing to do with any of this. It's exactly the same scenario that Ridley Scott came in, and maybe that's the key to making the right kind of intelligent sci-fi. You have it written by someone who knows all the ins and outs of the genre, but then interpreted by someone who's completely naive to it all, who isn't going to be affected by the existing tropes and habits and trends of the genre, and is just going to do their own unique thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, Ridley's involvement with this was down to him directing The Duelist, wasn't it? And he won the award at Cannes Film Festival, and a bit, I think Giler or sort of Gordon Carroll. Was it Gordon Carroll, the other producer? Yeah, he had sort of seen his work and brought him over, and he definitely interested straight away. But because he read the script, he was like, "Oh my god, this is like amazing." Obviously that would have been the revised versions by Walter Hill and David Giler.
Yeah.
But the original had a budget of 4.2 million and went to 8.4, just based on Ridley storyboarding everything. And his storyboards are fantastic. And he always listen to his commentaries, or even most interviews. He always likes to remind people he's done 2,000 commercials. But he has done one of the best commercials, voted I think by the UK, was the Hovis bread advert, which looks like a film. It looks amazing. You just see a kid go up the hill, drop off some bread, and then go down the hill with his legs like spread out on his bike, not pedaling. That's it. But it looks amazing.
If you're British and our age or older, you'll remember that ad, I think.
Oh yeah. But he must have done tons of them. But yeah. So I think it also occurred on this. It also occurred on Blade Runner. Was that Ridley doesn't spend much time with the actors. He's not interested in their motivation. He said, "You're an actor. You know what you're doing. Do it." So there's a lot of waiting around on set for Alien, and obviously Harrison Ford would get very frustrated having to wait around on Blade Runner. But on this, it's the same thing, where Ridley's just like, I'm focusing on how this looks, and I think that was, one of the producers was so like shocked by the upper management sort of pushing Ridley to do more and more, and he's like, what are you doing? He's getting 40 to 50 setups a day. It's like, what are you talking about? I think once people start seeing the rushes, they're like, oh my god, this looks incredible. Obviously, John Hurt's character, original actor he replaced, had like really bad diabetes, didn't he? Looked
John
really
Finch,
ill.
yeah, that's one of the stories, isn't it? Yeah, there are different stories about how and why he. I think the story Scott tells is that on his first shot, he was diabetic and he'd hidden it from the production crew so that for insurance reasons, the theory being anyway. And on this first shot, he basically keeled over and was hospitalised. But then there are a lot of stories saying that he did 3 days worth of shooting. And actually there was, in fact, I think everyone on the crew who's been asked about it, apart from Scott, says that he was there for 3 days, which is, it's unusual that everyone tells the same story, and they do seem to tell the same story there. And then it was probably something to do with his illness, but there were perhaps other factors as well.
Mm.
Speaking of 2001, the set or the stage that they're about to go into is the same stage where Kubrick shot the interaction with the monolith on the moon in 2001.
Oh, because it's both Shepperton, isn't it?
Stage H at Shepperton, yeah. The set of sort of the landscape, basically, between the lander and the crashed alien ship. That's shot on exactly the same spot as the monolith scene in 2001.
I suppose Ian Holmes' character, the android, I suppose he has a sort of authoritative kind of voice. He sounds like someone who could be upper class.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because he's there in place for. Obviously, he's a doctor and he's the medic essentially. So he's got to have that kind of approach. But I like those little moments where Ridley always said when he does the little warms up, right? Because his joints as an android has seized up a little bit. But I do like a little moment when the team go out to the spaceship and he looks through and he sort of waves at them. He shows that it's got a very human side to him. It kind of works really well to sort of, stop anyone second guessing that he may be a company man or an android. This is all children, isn't it? They'd used here, like 2 of Ridley's sons and one of the cameramen, one of his sons as well. So you've got this. Again, it's very creative filmmaking. It just gives everything scale. The props and the set design.
They do look a slightly different shape, though, don't they? I've always thought it's funny when have you seen that range of little collectibles? I don't know if they still make them, but about 15 years ago, they're a big deal. Called Kubricks, actually, nothing to do with Kubricks, but called Kubricks. They're like Lego, like fancy Lego men, and they do a range of them. I've got some somewhere, and I've got a set of Alien ones.
Oh right!
So it's all these characters in their spacesuits, and because they're kind of slightly squat, they look exactly like the children who appear in a couple of shots.
A fan of mine sent me one of those little figures of the xenomorph, like Star Wars figure, like height.
Yeah.
But they sort of re-released those because they started doing these kind of figures again, like for old men like us who like to buy toys. But do you remember, like, because they were going to bring out, weren't they, like Kenner or something? They were going to bring out this 13-inch, 12-inch.
No, they did. They
actually did release, didn't they? Yeah. So
there's an advert on YouTube for it. I used it in a video on Alien last year.
Yeah, because Zach Penn, the writer of he wrote Last Action Hero, had it, and he said he's a scary sister with it. Because it's like.
It's huge.
It's R-rated, and these little kids are like, "Yay, playing with this!"
Apparently, this was the first ever R-rated movie to have children's toys made for it, and I think it was just that toy because they didn't make any like actual humans for it to interact with. It was just the alien.
Yeah, they'd have to create maybe some sort of Barbie, like GI, like Action Man type normal figures, right?
That'd be about the right scale, yeah.
Yeah,
and a GI Joe Action Man type, yeah.
But I didn't know, because you'd shared it on Twitter not long ago, where a news report were interviewing families coming out of Alien, and the kids were asked about what they thought of it, and if they should have seen it. They were like, no. And the parents are like, oh, it's good for them to see it.
It is hilarious. That I suggest I encourage anyone to look it up on that you've got 2 families coming out, and one of them's come out like, interviewed, did you know it was going to be like, are you glad you took it? And the guy's like, I did not know. I would not have taken my son. No, I didn't. They interviewed the son, and the son's like, yeah, I was a bit scared. And then they interview this complete moron. He's so funny. He's got all nations have their own accents, don't they? And within those nations, there are accents that are a little more associated with perhaps not being the sharpest at all, and he's got a great accent for that, and he starts explaining how important it is that his child saw Alien, because this could really happen. This could happen in life, and it teaches you what to do when things like this happen. It's like, my son could find himself in deep space on a mining vessel trapped with a xenomorph alien.
Yeah, and he's got to rescue his cat as well, with a flamethrower.
I can't remember what the video's called, but if you search for news report Alien, you'll find it.
Oh man, it's gold, absolute gold. I mean, I saw this when I must have been 10 or 11 or something like that, because Alien 3 was already out, so I would have been coming up to 12 actually, I would say. And obviously, that's my kind of window into this franchise was number 3, because it was like that's the right age kind of to be aware of what's going on around you. The magazines obviously reviewing the Mega Drive game on Alien 3, and they're talking about how the film was a major disappointment and it was a massive letdown for the trilogy. But I loved the film when it came out. But once I started playing the game, we had Alien, must have been recorded of TV or maybe like a proper tape. But I watching it really, after playing the video game and then watching the first movie, I was absolutely terrified. It was kind of the build up. It's been just like you don't know what to expect. It was so tense, and the bit though, even though it's corny now, when Dallas sees the alien in the tubes, the piping, and all it does is just does that. You're just like that's not scary. It's a wonderful jump scare, and it shook me up a little bit. And the chest burster is kind of like, yeah, it's still tough to watch.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The chest burster is obviously the key to the whole movie, the key to the whole franchise.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Most of the people involved in its origins have said the same thing, that without that idea, it probably wouldn't have grabbed the studio's attention. It might not have been made in the first place. But I've always, even as a child, I've always thought it looks really fake, that alien. The little, the chest burster alien. It just,
when it comes out and it's like it just has a little and it sort of runs off, and it's like it's got no feet.
It looks like a Muppet when it runs off. It looks like an unarticulated thing on a stick. The whole as it's kind of writhing around as it comes out of the chest. It just doesn't move right. And then when it runs off, it looks just like at the end of Spaceballs, basically. It's
does,
no more convincing.
But it's what's terrifying is John Hurt's kind of like the pain he's put through, and he's like screaming, and it's the push that really sells it. It goes up, then goes back out, and it's the reactions, because
the reactions are
it's the reactions. So they knew what was going to happen, but they didn't know. I think there's kind of little bits of explosions, they said, like with the blood hitting people. They didn't know that, so that's how they sort of like...
Veronica Cartwright famously, had no idea.
Sells it so well, and Ian Holm just looks like totally shocked, but he's kind of knew something was going to happen. But
it's an experiment for him. It's maybe an unexpected result of his experiment, but he's in a different space. It's really interesting watching it, knowing the twist at the end with who he is. It's interesting watching his reactions in that scene.
Oh yeah, and I think there's a line cut, wasn't there? Is it from that moment or later on where he says Kane's son? Which is like, mostly we are now on the Giga's ship, which is incredible design and scary as hell. And then you see that wonderful matte painting with all the eggs, and this kind of leads into this coming up here. We see the engineer. Also, we saw what Ridley would wanted to do with Prometheus, and the sort of background to that, the mythology, which everyone wasn't totally keen on, because their theories and ideas at the time when they were interviewed about the making of the film and what they would see for, say, Alien 5. Because they all want to go back to where the alien planet was, but they sort of say this guy was taking... Well, I suppose it still kind of keys up quite well with Prometheus, because in this, these eggs were used as a weapon, and he's taking it to wherever to attack another planet. But obviously one escapes, one's disturbed, and one comes out, and the facehugger gets him. But you'll see in Prometheus, it's kind of... It's not... the eggs, it's this kind of that weird black liquid. And so could this be the third movie in the prequels? If Ridley Scott did one again with Michael Fassbender, would the engineer essentially be Michael Fassbender, David? Who's then molded to the thing, and he's crash landed. That's David, because he's brought all the eggs to take out Earth. Who knows?
Yeah.
But this is kind of...
I must admit, I get slightly confused with the mythology after Prometheus. Because I saw it once, and I can't even remember what the other one's called. Covenant, yeah. And I saw them when they came out, and then didn't see them again till last year. when I was researching for the video.
Did you dislike Covenant quite a lot?
I really did, to be honest. Yeah. Well, I didn't hate it, but it was just a whole lot of what's the point? I don't, it didn't really seem to add anything worthwhile to my mind. There's nothing wrong with it as a film, but...
But I think for me, it sort of what you kind of expected for the sequel was not really kind of delivered, and killing off Elizabeth Shaw so kind of haphazardly and just was really bad. And Fassbender's character essentially became the creator of the alien, which I think people just want to see this massive world full of aliens. I don't know,
something less formulaic as well, because Covenant, especially as I remember it anyway, it just seems so conventional. It's just that we have this scene, and there's a scene when they've got to try and beat a dust storm back to the spaceship, and a scene where they've got, it's all so...
Well, Covenant was clearly people reacting to people's complaints about Prometheus not being enough alien-like, and this one just goes, Alien Covenant's like, right, okay, opening the film, Jerry Goldsmith's music, shut up. This is the alien film you want, and it wasn't what they wanted, so it's very difficult. But I love this little moment here because, Ripley is in charge with Dallas away, and obviously, she's obviously telling him this is a warning sign to stay away. So the engineer on the ship is telling people to stay away, before he died. And obviously, Ash goes above her, her grade and position to let them in because he knows this is... Okay, it also leads into Weyland-Yutani. They were told to go investigate it. So they know something's there. Yeah,
and they know before they leave wherever it is they're on their way back from, because that's presumably why Ash was switched out for the... They potentially even routed the Nostromo through that, whichever solar system it is, where...
Yeah, for sure. Wasn't these lasers you see coming up when sort of weird layer to sort of give the eggs is kind of like, if you touch it, it sort of it goes off. It's like I think they borrowed them from Pink Floyd.
The Who, I think it was.
Was it the Who? That was it. Yeah,
the Who were like setting up for a tour, rehearsing for a tour or something in the next studio.
Yeah. Very clever stuff. Very clever stuff in this with the lasers and this bit of smoke machine.
There's a lot of that with it looks like an incredibly expensive movie because it's so beautifully designed, but it was made on a budget. They were snatching bits and bobs from here and there to try and...
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because with Fox, and they made Alien 3 to be their big hit of the year and spent like 50 million on it, where this was 8, maybe a little bit more. I mean, on YouTube, well, not YouTube, I'm saying YouTube, on Wiki or IMDb, it's like 11, but that could be amounting for marketing costs. Aliens cost like 16 million, something like that. It's that middle range, and they go straight to 50 for Alien 3. These films were never designed or never aimed to be huge budget films. They're always done moderate budget. Get a director who's very creative and great visual eye on the cheap, because on their sort of starting out sort of career, you get them, and then the films make it generally X amount of money. Because when they interviewed, I think one of the visual effects artists for Alien 4, he was like, Alien films are never that successful in terms of like comparing it to Independence Day, which made like 600, 800 million, and
no, of course not. No,
this made 184 million, which is really good considering the budget's so small.
Yeah,
but it's like it's no Star Wars.
No. The whole. I mean,
because it's R-rated, so it's gonna make less.
Well, yeah. I mean, all the Nostromo itself, the interior is all built from like old bits of old military vehicles and stuff, isn't it? And then just sprayed, and it's proper Roger Corman stuff, really.
Oh yeah. It's that brilliant kind of retrofitting stuff, and that comes from Star Wars, isn't it? It's very much like you see the mechanical workings of the ship, how things operate, and it's not just like clean and slick like Star Trek.
Exactly, it's practical.
Doesn't have a sense of believability to it because it's so far ahead in the future. But this is like you see the Nostromo, I think, that's definitely conceivable. You could make that, that's Ridley there. Is that Ridley there with some washing up gloves or something?
Yeah, famously, yeah.
That was me. Big cigar in his mouth.
Of course, he had a cigar in his mouth.
We had 5. Okay, that's one massive one.
I like that when Giger first designed this egg, it originally just had one slit. It's got like an X-shaped opening, hasn't it, with 4 kind of flaps or 4 wings or something. And apparently his original design for it was just a single slit, and he showed it to the producers. And I've had every single person who saw it said, "You cannot make the egg a woman's vagina. You just can't. It's not. We're not going to get away with it."
Well, that's what Veronica Cartwright said when she saw the ship. Just like this vaginas are like put in and penises. She's like.
I think half of the producer's jobs on this was just trying to rail Giger in, trying to rein him in and stop him designing everything to look like genitalia.
That's the funny thing about Giger. I think he could only do really kind of one design. You know what I mean? He had a very, very narrow kind of like direction with his art. You know, it was always incredible, but he couldn't do. Like when Joel Schumacher got him to try and design the Batmobile for Batman Forever, it's completely the wrong person to do that, you know. And it came back and it's like some weird alien shit, you know, some on wheels. It was just mad.
Yeah, it's the Keanu Reeves of the art world. What he does really well, but it's all he does. He does one thing. He just does it well. But they needed him though, because it is such a. One thing this movie does so well is establish this clear aesthetic difference between everything from the Aliens world and everything from ours. So whether it's Ron Cobb or Chris Foss or whoever's designing it made such sense to just have Giger responsible for doing everything, including the ship, because they had a bunch of designs for the ship that just weren't working for the alien
And also there was
ship.
like their visions. I think Ron Cobb had ideas of what the planet would look like. It's like pyramids and stuff.
Yeah.
But Ron Cobb tried to do the alien and it looked terrible. You know, it just like this Giger's design was so unique, so different, and scary at the same time, and really interesting. You know, so yeah, you couldn't. And I don't think there's never been another alien that has kind of been that. Well, you got Predator.
That's influential as well, because it did. Again, this is something I mentioned in my videos on Alien. That like prior to Alien, there were really 2 types of alien. There was the little green man and the other one. but this xenomorph has become an archetype now. It's, you know, the kind of matte black effect, because although it's humanoid broadly in shape, you don't really get much of a sense of that because of the way it's shot. It's kind of insectoid as well, and it's, you know, there are times when you can't really tell if it's a 2-legged beast or a 4-legged beast, or, you know, which bits of it are which, and that's become, you know, it's been copied incessantly.
Oh yeah, even in a very lazy fashion in like in Split Second, which we did a commentary on ages ago.
Yeah.
And obviously Giger would come back and do Species, which kind of borrows heavily from this design. And but did you ever read the novelization of this?
No.
My friend was telling me about it even last night. Just reminded me about it, but he said there's bits in it where, like the aliens going through the kitchen and eating food or something. It was kind of weird.
It's not. I know that it was written when the novelization was written. The author hadn't seen any image of it. Didn't know what the alien looked like because they wanted to keep it top secret, and even he wasn't allowed to see it. So I guess if he was going based on a description, you could. Yeah, it's hard to.
And he said, like, when they're doing the tracking the alien, doing the ducks, as it were, that was kind of a bigger sequence where you got a group of people following this bip, 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 bip sort of thing, but the alien's underneath them. So it's like they get confused on who's what they're kind of monitoring. But sort of simplified it for the bit with Dallas, which actually was a brilliant, choice.
I think that's one of the best sequences in the movie. It's the one that scared me as a kid as well. I wasn't ever really scared of the smaller ones, but the face hugger but that is just a lesson in tense filmmaking.
Yeah. We were mentioning earlier about the sort of production design, the sort of retrofitting and creating a sort of believable kind of environment. This bit here really feels like out of Star Trek or 2001 Space Odyssey. It's got a clean, slick, white, and it's kind of this technology to sort of go along and scan his body. It's so like future tech.
Yeah. Yeah, the med bay, I guess, would be makes sense for it to be even cleaner than the rest.
Yeah. Oh, this is the part here where the music goes. Brop, 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 brop. It's sort of, that's all from Freud.
This was another clever idea that I can't remember whether it was. I think it was Ron Shusett again. It might have been Dan O'Bannon. I can't remember. But making the blood acid to create a situation where everyone knows you can't just blow it up. You can't just shoot it to death. You've got to figure out a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I say, a perfect defense mechanism, isn't it? You know.
Apparently, there are actual real animals with a similar thing going on.
Really? God. It's so like we were watching Alien vs Predator 2, where you got like people shooting these aliens so up close, and no acid on them. They're fine. It's but a scratch. You know?
It is quite funny, isn't it? They invented that the whole point to this alien is that it's an alien you can't shoot, and then they made Aliens, which is just
yeah. But to be fair, though, you do see like a bunch of them just get covered in acid.
Yeah, they deal with the reality of it, but it's the whole idea of this movie was that they wanted to avoid using guns, and then the whole idea of the sequel is that they use guns.
Now, obviously, there's a bit coming up later on, I think, where Ripley sort of, corners Dallas to sort of talk about, Ash's kind of authority of not following her chain of command. And I think they cut something out, but they're supposed to imply that they had a sort of relationship on the ship. But they sort of maybe get rid of it because it doesn't really add anything. You just need to. You just have this kind of like where Dallas is just like, can't we bother to deal with it? I just want to go home, and not deal with this kind of petty arguing.
It never made sense, that sex scene, when I read about it, because Tom Skerritt was, I believe anyway, the one who suggested taking it out, saying that this really doesn't make any sense and it slows everything down. But the idea was always, these long voyages, people are going to end up treating sex very casually, and for release of pressure and so on. I just going to, but they are long voyages, but they're spent in hibernation. So why would that be a factor?
Yeah, exactly. I think that the facehugger in this film definitely looks the best out of all of them. We saw the sequels, because all the sequels had to make kind of multiple ones, but this one is just the look of it, the design, the detail of it. It's still grey, gooey, and wet. It just looks.
It's the same philosophy as the VFX. It doesn't do quite as much as they do in subsequent movies. It's a lot more limited what you can do with it. So they just do less with it, and it looks more realistic. It looks...
Yeah. This is a great build-up as well, because you think, the camera's just panning in on Ash, but actually it's Sigourney's coming in, Ripley's coming in to...
And he's literally looking at the embryonic... facehugger chestburster, in Ash's chest. If he's an android, why you'd think his eyes would have built-in microscopic lenses?
Yeah, like Crichton.
Yes. The benchmark for sci-fi androids.
Yeah. John Hurt's character's called Kane, not Ash.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
Someone will say.
Fuck's sake, Rob.
I love how he's just a bit like, doesn't want to engage with her, but he has to. And you see him drink milk. Is that like a sign as well?
I hadn't thought of that, yeah.
He's got milky insides, hasn't he? And Ian Holm.
Maybe that's just to torture Ian Holm, because he hated milk so much.
I can drink gallons of the stuff. Love it.
Gives him a prolonged resistance to adverse environmental conditions. Said nothing.
That's funny. What does it mean?
Please don't do that. Thank you.
Sorry.
This character was added later as well, wasn't he? The character of, I'll get it right this time, the character of Ash was added by, one of the many great things added by David Giler and Walter Hill. after Dan O'Bannon's original. I mean, we should probably address this, shouldn't we? The
Well, yeah, because
feuding writers.
you had brought it up earlier. I remember we'll be at about 6 months ago, maybe longer. We were in a pub. You were just like, just going deep into why you felt Dan O'Bannon, took more credit than he should have done.
Well, yeah, I did a deep dive because I like to know where all the ideas come from before laughing at movies that rip those ideas off. And it's like what he wrote was essentially The Thing or It, the Creature from, one of these 1950s movies. Almost every key aspect that we think of and remember from Alien were conceived by other people, starting with Ron Shusett, his writing partner, who was also a producer, who came up with the idea of the facehugger impregnating a male astronaut specifically, essentially a male rape, and then the chestburster bursting out, that whole key scene, the whole idea for which was simply a means of getting the alien on the ship without the crew noticing. But the screenplay then went to David Giler and Walter Hill, who rewrote pretty much everything according to Dan O'Bannon, only so that they could diddle him out of a credit. And they like changed all the characters' names and things like that, which is a common trick, isn't it? A common tool for writers to kind of stamp their authority on a thing. But David Giler came up with, or Walter Hill came up with the idea for Ash, came up with the idea for Ripley being a woman, which wasn't something Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett had ruled out, but in their script, all the characters were written to be either gender, apart from Ripley, apparently. And that's the one that they decided to make. And I can't remember. There's a few other bits and bobs that, and it all led to a huge, long drawn out legal fight between Dan O'Bannon and David Giler in particular, that got very, very ugly indeed. And there's still a lot of animosity from David Giler and Dan O'Bannon. But at the end of the day, David Giler didn't get a writing credit. And he came up with at least as much of this stuff, as far as I can tell, as anyone else.
Yeah.
But Dan O'Bannon just went nuts. He was not having it for a second, and I can understand why.
Well, he wants to maintain his credit, but also, you get, money over the years for that, protecting your, assets, as it were. But as you say, what was the legal case? What was the outcome of the legal case? Dan O'Bannon retained credit. Dan O'Bannon
won. Yeah, he gets. He's got a. I think there's like a story by credit which is just him, or maybe it's the other way around. I forget now. But there's just him, and then there's another credit which is him and Shusett.
Right. I see. Because David Giler would come in to sort of help rewrite, Alien 3 parts of it, like the day-to-day, because I kept changing the script. So he's not, it's interesting. David Giler sadly passed away not long ago, because he's like one of the best of the interviewees on those Alien documentaries.
Yeah, he's good, isn't he?
He's so, he's got a cigarette on the go, and he's just brutally honest about stuff. I believe
he's
so.
Pissed off, isn't he? You can tell he's pissed off in those
He's
interviews.
a guy you wouldn't want to mess around with, you know what I mean? Just to slightly annoy him, you'd be like, I better go. It's like your dad shouting at you,
He's not infallible though, because he also wanted to had the idea of the alien being played by an orangutan in a costume, which back in the Roger Corman era.
That's like Menachem Golan kind of idea, isn't it? You know what I mean?
I don't know how serious he was, or whether that's just,
Well, that's what the great moment where I think Dan O'Bannon wanted to see the rushes or something, and then Gordon Cowell's like, "You're not allowed to go in," and he goes, "Why not? I rolled it." He's like, "You'll sue me," something. He threatened him because I went up to the projection booth and watched it, So it's still at the time, it's still like people just pissed off with each other. Now, obviously, the inside, isn't it, of the facehugger is kind of made up of oysters and clams, like fresh, so it gives you that kind of look. And again, another good jump scare. It just boop, falls on her shoulder.
Yeah. I found this fascinating when I was a kid. This wondering what that was, what it was made of. It looks great.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. But also, I love the line from Ian Holm where he goes, "Well, we're safe to say it's not a zombie." You know, he says, because he thinks he's going to come back.
He's so irritated, isn't he, by having to deal with Ripley's questions on the matter.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's a shame that Dallas doesn't kind of put his foot down and stuff, but he's like, this is something to do with the science department. Ash has final word.
Yeah.
You know, and
he doesn't want to commit to anything. He doesn't.
Because that was it, wasn't it? Because Ash's character was replacing someone else, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He got replaced at the last minute. So, as you were saying earlier about Weyland Yutani kind of diverting them to go that way, they were swapped by Ash because they knew this signal, something had been pinged out in space, and they'd been bounced back and gone, right, let's go check this out, and we'll send this crew.
Weyland Yutani, which I didn't realise till this round of research, the name was based on British Leyland, as in Leyland, and Toyota. So they originally wanted to call the company Leyland Toyota, but for obvious reasons couldn't. And it's something I'd never even noticed was that in this movie it's called Weyland Yutani, and in the sequels it's Weyland Yutani. I'd never noticed that.
Oh, they changed the E with the A?
They add a D to the end of Weyland.
Oh, sorry, Weyland. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I think presumably to disassociate from Leyland a little further, they added a W at the beginning and took the D off the end, and then in the sequels decided to add it back in for whatever reason.
Imagine it was something like Birdseye and Ford or something. That's good. It's evil fish finger company. It's just amazing, these miniatures. Just rising up very slowly on a forklift, you know, with just loads of like smoke machines and just getting blown. Yeah, yeah. Because the front of the Nostromo, the bit attaches off, like when they went to land, like weighed incredible amounts. So they had to use a forklift to sort of lift it up or make it move, you know.
Mm.
I mean, there's a story with Martin Bauer, who's a miniature model maker, and he'd helped design some of the Nostromo. I think Ron Cobb had done a design, and he'd done some work, sketched it out, what he thought it would be, and then he'd spent like 6 weeks designing it, and then Ridley comes in with a chisel, starts chopping bits off. Right, and he goes, builds it again, these bits, and about, I want to shoot after lunch. It's like, it took 6 weeks. You know? It's mad. But it's just, Ridley just had such a perfect vision, you know, in his eyes. No, it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Take this off. Put this bit here. It looks better. You know.
There's a certain sort of characteristic or personality that really comes through in commentaries, I find, when you listen to directors, as opposed to all the other filmmakers and cast and crew involved. There's something. They all seem to be unbelievably single-minded and focused. You know, and will compromise when they have to, I suppose, but will quite happily endanger cast or leave crew working 48-hour days or whatever to get what they want. There's a certain commitment that's you just don't hear from normal people.
No, you don't. You don't. I mean, that's why I think, you know, Ridley Scott is like one of the best at commentaries. You know? I've listened to a bunch of them. You know, Tim Burton will put you to sleep.
Yeah. John Carpenter, I like John Carpenter and Kurt Russell doing a commentary together. That's gold standard.
They're just having a laugh. You know, they're just having a laugh, aren't they? So sometimes you're like, you got any facts here, guys? No, that's not taking the piss. You know, sort of having a laugh. So I love that. I love all that stuff. Harry Dean Stanton, you know, obviously passed away a couple of years ago. He's when he got hired, he didn't like science fiction. Ridley said, yeah, I don't either, but I think this is going to be something different and something special.
The legend goes that's the first thing he said, wasn't it?
Yeah. You know, he's the ultimate schlub, isn't he, in this movie? You know, more schlubby than Parker.
It's perfect casting, isn't it? I mean, again, this is something Ridley Scott's always been big on. He, as you said earlier, he doesn't necessarily direct actors that intensively, but he's very, very big on casting, what he always says anyway, very big on casting the right actors and putting a lot of effort into finding the right actors to begin with, because then he can just leave them to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you know. I think in a situation where you are creating a world and you need to focus a lot of time on setups and getting it to look right, you don't want an actor going, "What's my motivation?"
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what?
And you need actors as well in a film like this, where it's a very naturalistic style, isn't it, that everyone has, which explains why Robert Altman was, I suppose, considered for directing duties.
Well, he was like one of the pioneers of sort of editing with that cross chatter.
Exactly, yeah. This kind of scene now is kind of pure Robert Altman.
It is,
and
yeah.
you can see. But if you'd thrown an actor in here who had a different approach, it just wouldn't have worked. Everyone has to be on the same page, and everyone has to be doing the same kind of thing, and they are.
Wasn't it something like earlier on that he said, "I'll treat you to Chinese" or something like that? So I felt like he's talking about potentially buying food. We have to buy certain food from the Nostromo to get it. I don't know, but it seems to be eating a lot of muesli here. It's like, oh god. Oh, that shot of Ian Holm.
I love it. I love how Holm in this scene is brilliant. Everything he does is kind of logical, but with hindsight, when you know what he knows, you realise he's doing it for different reasons, and it's not. Somehow he manages to act getting up from his chair in a way that can mean one thing, but actually suggests something else when you know something else.
Oh yeah, just everyone's reactions here and how they're dealing with the situation. This looks so real. It's like documentary filmmaking in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they stop. What the fuck? Oh yeah. Out of all the Alien films, this is still the best chest burster kind of sort of thing. It's just a quick editing. Does so much work. But you're saying here, like,
yeah, this I just don't buy it. I never have, to be honest. It just looks like a thing on a stick to me. And I'm normally dead good at suspending my disbelief. I'm kind of an idiot, but that's just not. And then this is, it's just weird. It's like a Muppet.
It's like the curry monster in Red Dwarf, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crichton, my pants are shrinking. He's like...
That's the polymorph, actually.
The polymorph.
The shrinking pants.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, the curry monsters when they just. The
curry monster's the one with the RoboCop reference.
Yeah.
Rather than the...
That's right. Yeah. I can't keep up. I'm knackered. Oh, this is the bit here where I love this bit of trivia because they fire Kane out the thing, and there's a bit of an atmosphere, like a bit of smoke, and they're like, Ridley, there's no atmosphere in space. And he goes, well, there is now, mate. So that's what I love, these little moments where he just like goes, nah, putting that in looks cool.
That's what you. It's the perfect marriage, isn't it? So someone with sci-fi geek credentials has built the framework, and then it's being interpreted by just a purely creative person.
Yeah, I mean, for Ridley's second film, he did a period drama beforehand, and did a sci-fi film that, for all intents and purposes, like just again like Star Wars, just elevated the genre. And I think obviously Star Wars played a big part in its kind of design, but I think Alien would sort of further that in the case of Blade Runner. Blade Runner. I suppose Blade Runner is now sort of the archetype of what a future would be potentially. Like, cause it's like you're seeing old buildings with like this future text shoved on the front of it. Yeah. And that's kind of what you see with buildings now, where things are cobbled onto it.
Yeah, nothing was makeshift prior to that sort of late 70s.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The year before Star Wars, you had Logan's Run, which
was
so 70s. It's like that LSD look of the 70s, where it's all a bit like, oh, the future is a shopping mall, and everyone's wearing like spandex outfits. I love Logan's Run. Don't get me wrong, I love that film.
It is dated as hell, though, isn't it?
It's so dated, yeah. But what about? I suppose one film people often forget is Silent Running.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I was just going to say that,
because that has the kind of, it's not all, like Star Trek or Logan's Run. There is a lot of bit of a...
It's not so much the used future, but it's very much the boring run-of-the-mill workaday future. The spacemen in that movie aren't heroic pilots. They're just people doing a job.
Yeah.
Was that Silent Running before? A couple of years before Dark Star, wasn't it? I know it's before this.
Roughly,
I think it was
roughly the same time, I think. Silent Running was, because obviously Silent Running, the robots and that would inspire Lucas to do R2D2.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's Douglas Trumbull did Silent Running, didn't it? Did the effects on Blade Runner.
And someone 2001 as well.
Yeah, pioneering stuff. I mean, because he did Brainstorm. That's the kind of the movie. I think he basically stopped directing after that.
Yeah.
I love the tracking device they've got here. Just like it's a massive box with this tube on it. It's more like a hoot. It's more like a dustbuster, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Why would that be in? I mean, there's a whole lot of. I'm always amused by the the flamethrower in Aliens. Like, what purpose does that serve on a spaceship? why would you need a...
For getting rid of bugs, I'd say. The big space spider, get rid of it. Space weevils. Did you go see the director's cut of this when it came out?
I did, yeah. I saw it projected digitally on opening night in Leicester Square. It was the first time anyone I was with had seen a digital projection.
Yeah, wow. Blimey. Were you quite impressed with it at the time?
I thought it was wonderful
digital?
at the time, yeah. I'd yet to develop my profound hatred of everything to do with digital cinematography and projection. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was shot on film, so it might be digitally projected, but it was not so much of a problem as the stuff that's also shot on digital cameras.
Yeah, because this got reclassified to a 15 for its director's cut. And so I was at sixth form at the time, and it was 1999, wasn't it? Because it's the 20th anniversary. So it wasn't playing in Cambridge, of all places, So I had to go to Stevenage to go see it with friends, and they shoved it in a kind of small screen. And I don't think it had Dolby Digital, it's a Dolby Stereo track. But I sat next to someone who he must have seen it because he's seen the director's cut, but he still jumped out of his seat when the chest burst and went,
yeah,
or when the facehugger fell on Sigourney's shoulder. But the director's cut isn't actually a director's cut. It's just done for marketing purposes. So this is the director's cut, the theatrical one, because years ago on the special edition Laserdisc that they'd put out of Alien in 1991, 92, that had deleted scenes on it, which had the bit with Dallas cocooned, and they showed you what they'd originally edited as a sequence. Obviously, they put that back in the director's cut, but used different angles and tightened it up a little bit. I think there's other obviously deleted scenes where Veronica Cartwright slaps Sigourney when she comes down the steps. As other little bits and bobs, but they tightened it up. It ends up being a slightly shorter film than the theatrical, but they cut out the egg sort of chamber, the home of the alien on the ship, because it destroyed the pacing. Because you're having Ripley running away, then suddenly it comes to a grinding halt for them to see Dallas, and her to sort of cook him. But it's, but I suppose to show this is director's cut, this is something new. Let's put something back in, and that's what you put back in, and that shows you before, James Cameron had done Aliens, that this was the genesis of how an egg could be made, where someone is transformed into an egg. I don't know what the aliens did, just dribbling on him or something. I don't know, but he was using it as also using it as food as well.
Yeah, every time he talks about it, Ridley Scott says something similar, and it's basically I put these scenes back in, and then I watched it and I thought, oh yeah, it really slows everything down. That's why I took them out, and then it was released anyway. It's okay, fine. So it's just literally, like you say, a marketing move, just to.
I don't think. I mean, they put it on all the discs, but I never watched the director's cut. I always watched.
No, to be honest, I'm not generally interested in director's cuts and things like that. I've never really seen. Maybe I'm just not observant enough. Half the time, I don't notice the difference, even if it's a film I know really well.
If it's like 2 or 3 minutes and you're not going to notice, But if it's something like this, like 25 minutes, like Terminator 2 or Aliens, then you're going to know, right? It's like, or the assembly cut of Alien 3, you're going to which I really like. So I think that would make a worthwhile argument to say, oh, I prefer that version. But it's still not a director's cut because Fincher wasn't involved in that assembly version. But this sequence here, I mean, Jerry Goldsmith said when he had to watch the film for the first time by himself in a theatre, this sequence went on for ages. It's like a 4-hour cut movie, and he was just terrified. And then when the alien came down, and killed him, but he said, yeah, he shat himself.
This is along with the scene in the in the tunnels later. This is the one that I remember most from childhood, and this is the one that scared my son as well when I tortured him with it at the age of 9.
But because in director's cut, you see the alien above just hanging, it's upside down. It's doing that.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
And then when he's taken up by the alien, you see Parker and kind of run in with Ripley, I think, and then you see him get taken off. Essentially, you see all the blood come down. But yeah, I think just having how it is in this is perfect. I mean, that shot there, that slow move in with the camera to these doors that are kind of half open. I mean, this is just like, no wonder he put this in. It looks completely different to the rest of the ship of what we've kind of seen. This is just like, wow, look at that. It's mad. It's kind of like is that part of the equipment for the mining? I don't know, but it's like something that could be lowered.
No, I think that's another classic Ridley Scott. It's there because it looks good. He wanted movement, didn't he? Asked to explain it, he ended up mumbling something about, well, you're still going to need to get stuff up and down in a spaceship. So yeah, but it's ultimately there because it looks cool.
When you see up chains just like in front of the camera, it just kind of gives you visions of Hellraiser.
Yeah. But I like what it adds to the sound design as well, actually. Even more than the visual.
Because it implies something's kind of brushed past them.
Yeah, that's another question he's often asked, isn't it? Is why are they moving? What's blowing them about on a spaceship? I love this shot as well of Harry Dean Stanton, and this was his idea apparently. Just here's a little moment for you, Ridley. He's a really interesting actor, Harry Dean Stanton. Everything he does is worth watching.
Oh yeah, he's one of those fantastic supporting actors. I mean, Repo Man, he's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he pops up in Twin Peaks and stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, David Lynch and he were good friends, I believe. Mm. I like his cameo at the end of The Straight Story. He's just great as well.
Oh, you kind of see behind. Is that the tail of the alien, you think? Oh, the cat comes out. I think they said that they had a dog on set to make the cat do that.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, behind a glass screen.
This shot here really gives you the scale, doesn't it, of the alien? Like how tall it is, I think, because oftentimes it's kind of just hunched a little bit to go down the corridors,
We should mention the guy who played him, whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'll leave that to you.
That's not fair.
I think he's a
Bolaji Badji. I can't know. No, come on, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to embarrass myself. But did I find him in a pub?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was a graphic design student or something from Nigeria, nearly 7 feet tall and incredibly skinny.
How you're about 6'4", weren't you? 6'5"?
6'4.5". Yeah. So substantially taller than me. I mean, I think it was 6'10" or 6'11" or something that I read anyway. But maybe
it says on here 6'10". So
when you're that tall, people are just going to make it up half the time. But that is proper. Like that's not someone you see in the street ever. Someone that tall.
Yeah.
Incredibly skinny arms and legs, and the behind the scenes footage of him in the suit is just brilliant.
Yeah. They got him like practicing just like in his underpants with this kind of fake kind of alien head on, just to sort of see how he would move and how he'd move in that environment.
And he looks great doing it as well. I know he studied mime and stuff like that. He was obviously sent off to get in control of his body, but whatever it was he came up with, it really works.
He passed away in 1992 at the age of 39. Sickle cell disease, apparently.
Can you catch that from the diesel fumes that they were blasting into the set here?
Maybe. They've got a lot of beeswax, don't they, they use?
They used for some of the smoke they used a diesel-based product as well, which you weren't allowed to use in the States. It was outlawed because it was so dangerous, and it is here now as well. But at the time, it was making everyone quite ill. Apparently,
I'm surprised.
it's funny. There's always a bit when you listen to a commentary that certainly for a genre movie anyway. There's so often a bit where the actor says, "And yet you're not allowed to do this now. You're not allowed to."
That's true, man.
I watched the commentary for Terry Gilliam's Jabberwocky the other day because I was on someone's podcast talking about it, and Michael Palin is half of what he says is just yeah, you're not allowed to do this now. Yeah, this nearly killed me. I choked doing that, and Terry Gilliam's just like yeah, fine, whatever. We got the shot.
Oh, Michael Palin, love him. He's always so funny, that guy. I always thought the text did always kind of looked like it'd been remastered in some way because it looked too clean and high res, you know. But well, maybe not.
I was just thinking the same thing. It really looks like it.
I love how in movies they always do this, where the text is like, well, they type all just a bunch of nonsense and it comes up with like, you know, the perfect answer or response. You know, it doesn't make sense. It's like a weird operating system to type in stuff. You know,
everyone thought that in the almost immediate future, computers would be essentially intelligent enough to communicate with as you communicate with a human, didn't they? It's always the way.
Here we go. Here comes the. So even those bits, how it opens up, that's terrifying as well. If you get caught in that, you're screwed.
Event Horizon's got a good one. Is it Event Horizon? Event Horizon's got all kinds of cool, scary corridors and door and stuff like that, which is obviously a lot of it inspired by this.
Yeah, Event Horizon, that was quite scary to see when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. It's like gave me sort of not nightmares, but very vivid sort of thoughts. You just go into bed, you're trying to fall asleep, and it pops into your head. You're like, oh god.
Have you done a retrospective on it? I can't remember now.
I did.
You did? Yeah, I thought you did. Yeah,
a long time ago.
I suppose back in the days when you could use footage fairly freely on YouTube without it being too disturbing.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. My review of the thing got flagged after about 2 weeks, so I made a little bit of money, but since then I made no money off it. You know, it's just that was a freebie, folks. You know.
I've got for some reason my Die Hard videos are deemed inappropriate for. It's ridiculous. They say it's because of swearing, and I go through it and remove, all the F-bombs that I can anyway, certainly. And then it's like, oh, it's not appropriate. What if a child walks in? Like, Jesus Christ! When I walk into my daughter's room, the stuff she's watching on channels aimed at kids, they're swearing their heads off. It's one rule for others, isn't it? Really, hit a certain number of followers, and they can get away with murder. Yeah, that's it.
Essentially.
Okay, I'm through. Ripley.
Yes.
Close all the hatches behind me. I'm moving on.
Or they wonderfully spoofed this sequence in The Simpsons, where you've got the Willie going through the...
Grease me up, woman.
Yeah, okie dokie. She's like... The dog's like whizzing past, isn't it?
It is funny just how many, especially children's-oriented TV programs and movies have homaged this film, considering it, really the kids watching it shouldn't have seen that. But it's in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have a...
Yes, these alien kind of yellow...
Yes, it's yellow, but Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters do as well. And, oh God, all kinds of them. I suppose you get the attitude of a concerned parent that because you were saying earlier about showing maybe I shouldn't have shown my kid this film, but it's kind of once they've seen it, they're like, yeah, it's got a bit scary, but they kind of get over it really quite quickly, and they're not going to be like having nightmares for a week. No, exactly, and it's like anything else. Every generation, the scary cinema of the previous generation just doesn't look very scary, does it?
No, no. The scary Elm Street films or Halloween, whatever, Friday the 13th. They're very, very tame.
Exactly. Yeah, I watched Elm Street with my kids when they were young, and it didn't touch the sides. And obviously, like going back even further, the Universal monster movies I brought my son up on.
They're PGs.
So they should be. They're just not remotely scary.
The people in the 30s like over gasping and fainting.
People were fainting in the cinemas at this stuff, and
Oh god, yeah. That's the only time Dallas is worried.
Yeah.
Because he's just been so. They've just described to him how tall it was, and it just took him away. You'd be like, well, okay, fine, I'll go get in this tight spot with a flamethrower. I think I'll be all right. I think I'll be able to deal with this.
He's just so laid back, isn't he? Which
yeah.
I wonder how much of that was in the original script, because Tom Skerritt is, if you ever see him interviewed, he's just like classic California surfer type dude, isn't he? He's just
he is, yeah.
So he's blatantly, if he's not stoned, he looks like he should be. And I don't know. I wonder how much of that came from him, and how much of it was in the script, and how much of it was they cast him because he fit that character.
Yeah, and he leaves with the flamethrower. Without it, sorry. It's like, oh my god, what are you doing? In most cases, you'd just kind of all huddle in an area. Oh, that bit always terrified me. The, like, just going in one spot. When the alien comes in, wandering around, just flamethrow it.
Yeah.
What's the rush? They're in this mad rush, aren't they?
Depressurise the whole ship.
Yeah.
But you can't start picking holes in any kind of sci-fi movie. You can pick holes in, can't you? They have to do so much heavy lifting when it comes to creating a coherent narrative and world.
Well, that's the kind of, when you watch it, you try and watch it sometimes with a logical kind of thought process, and you think, it's not making any sense. But this bit here, I think I highlighted in my retrospective a long time ago, but just Sigourney's performance here is so real when she just loses her temper, because obviously, Yaphet was kind of told to piss her off, basically, just to wind her up and keep talking over her, and she just loses it, and it's so good. And Veronica Cartwright, the best at, worrying and having major anxiety.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think you mentioned that it shows that the pressure is getting to Ripley because she's just inherited responsibility for everything, and it's a good observation. And yeah, you would tell Parker to shut up. He's so irritating if you're trying to solve a problem. And he was exactly like this on set, wasn't he, apparently? Constantly barracking Ridley
I'm not going to
Scott
die
with
today.
questions. And I'm not going to die, that was it, yeah.
It's going to punch it out. I'm going to wrestle with it.
Apparently he'd needle the guy who played the alien all the time as well to create some animosity there.
Cheeky man.
Is Yaphet Kotto still alive?
I hope so.
You don't see much of him these days, if he is, because he's a
he died
cracking
a
actor.
couple of years ago. 81. Good innings, I'd say.
Yep.
Well, it's amazing. Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently one of the most watched Bond films on TV.
I read that somewhere, heard that somewhere.
Yeah, because it must have obviously came on TV in the late 70s, early 80s when everyone was watching either BBC One, 2 or ITV. That was it. There's no Channel 4, so that's when everyone watched TV all at once.
And Coronation Street got 25 million viewers every day.
God.
It's unbelievable when you think about it.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Nowadays, they're lucky when they get like 1 million.
Yeah.
That's really popular shows, like 1 million. Think, wait a minute, YouTubers are getting more than these shows, and these shows are getting like
I know,
huge budgets. I'm like, what are you doing?
A friend of mine's a legitimate documentarian, and he makes like TV series, documentaries for proper network TV, and he's always enjoyed needling me about having a kind of a make-believe equivalent career on YouTube doing it, but it did strike me that my videos actually get more views nowadays than his legitimate TV shows do. So
exactly, yeah. So who's the money's in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about what they can spend. Like his budget for a 1-hour documentary is something we couldn't dream of.
Yeah, we have no money.
It's just the way YouTube revenue works. It just either YouTube is underpaid by advertisers, or I think probably more likely TV networks are vastly overpaid.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, this is a brilliant moment here because she asks Elsie, well, clearly then the computer's not going to help her. But to the side of her is Ash, who's kind of worked his way in. He's got the access. But when she pushes him against the wall, and he doesn't know, like, it's kind of an emotion like he hasn't experienced before. So he's just like a bit unsure, and then he follows, and he starts because he must have banged his head, right? Because he starts bleeding them. The milk,
and so it starts acting a bit strange as well.
He's glitchy.
Glitching. That's it,
yeah. In the sequel, like those old androids were always twitchy. He'd say, a bishop would say. But I don't. Ridley says when he rolls up the magazine and tries to put it in her mouth, it's like a weird sexual thing. I just think he's trying to suffocate her, right? But is that a sexual thing?
That's what I'd always assumed. But obviously, as an older viewer, you do start to see just how much reproduction, themes of reproduction and sex and so on are built into it. And I wouldn't be surprised. I could see that either way. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Ridley Scott had subsequently thought this is a good thing to say, because he does seem to do that, like most filmmakers, does seem to do that a bit.
Sort of embellishing some moments.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of like rewriting of history, isn't there? That filmmakers want to say, well, maybe they just misremember.
Yeah, because for example, he's done a commentary to a film from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't remember what happened like last week.
But he also said that the instruction to Ian Holm was to stick it up her hooter, which apparently caused consternation or confusion on set because the American cast, to an American, that a hooter is breasts, so hooters. But it's obviously it's English slang for nose, but it doesn't stick it up her nose and can't stick it up her nose. So I don't know where that story came from.
Do you remember the reactions to this when it came out? Because at the American screenings, where people just like fainted when his head got knocked off, and like they said, like an usher just passed out, and like people like running out and puking in the bins and ruining these wonderful cinemas.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that guy in Texas goes, "Oh, that scene with a chest burster. We just cut that bit out."
Yeah,
The toilets were fine from then on. It make no sense to film.
he's so sick of people throwing up in his toilets that he removed the scary scene.
I suppose when cinemas had that power, I suppose. to do
Yeah, it's
that.
uncanny. It's incredible, isn't it? It always makes me think of Cinema Paradiso. Have you seen that? It's a
Oh, amazing film.
beautiful film.
Made me cry, that film. God.
Yeah, God,
Love
yeah. But they cut out every kiss in every movie and then like tape them all together and then end up with just one long reel of the most. Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking when the little kid finds out the projectionist died.
Yeah.
God. Heartbreaking. Oh, yeah, he grabbed his man boob. He squeezed his peck. There we go. Twogs him. All the blood comes out. Or milk. Because whenever he grabbed her hair, Ash did, because he did this kind of like murmur, didn't he? Like he's glitching, and suddenly he just like, throws her.
It's really unnerving, isn't it, this stuff?
It is, yeah. There's the sound effect as well.
It's, yeah,
The voice.
yeah. Throughout this movie, the sound effects just do so much work.
I think it won I'm sure it won a BAFTA actually. Yeah, it won a BAFTA for sound and production design, but it won an Oscar for its visual effects. Weirdly, because in the UK, because Star Wars came out quite late in the UK, it came out in 78, not 77, so that was included into the BAFTAs for 79 awards. So that beat Alien, which came out a year. Well, technically, came out 2 years later. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. This should have got more awards, really. But
Yeah,
for what it achieved.
It was. I think it would do if it were released now, but this is ceremonies just didn't give awards to sci-fi movies back then, did they? Mainstream awards ceremonies.
But people were furious that Superman mention that got lost out to loads of things like the score, production design, cinematography, direction. and things like
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
you know.
the score,
It just got-
certainly, it should have been a no-brainer.
Because I think what was it? Midnight Express beat it. No one talks about that fucking score, do they? That's the funny thing, isn't it, about Oscars? You know, the movies that win Best Film, no one talks about. It's the film that lost, everyone still watches. You know, generally, anyway. I always loved, if you watch the making of the movie, well, the documentary they did a number of years ago, where Ridley talks about, like, they were never happy with the face because he's like that, you know, this kind of mould of him, you know, never looked great when they flamethrower it.
And you did.
Well,
I
they
noticed
just
that
disconnect him. That's it. Yeah.
when you talk about that in the video, in your retrospective on Alien, you use that exact clip from the document of him making that face. It always makes me laugh.
I love how that's just the design of the interior of the insides of Ash is really creative. It's nothing like, because you can also with a sensors you can get around it because it's not blood, it's not like organs and stuff. It's just wiring with these weird like glass marble shaped things, you know, little balls.
Yeah, and I like that it's like he's almost a biological entity, isn't he? He's I think Ridley Scott makes this point. He sees him more as a replicant than an android, someone whose body kind of essentially replicates the functions of the human body. So it's built in the same kind of way as a human body, rather than
because he eats and drinks, doesn't he? So
yeah. Apparently, there were a lot more of the grapey type things in the original version of that scene that they had to reshoot.
oh, because it wasn't the face didn't.
Yeah, because of the wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even when the last line he says, you know, about their chances of survival, she's just like, oh fuck you, you know, just rips off the power. He just doesn't, even by the end, he doesn't care. You know, he's just a machine. But I always go back to playing the video game Alien Isolation, because once you encounter the replicants or androids, they are proper terrifying.
Is that the one? I had as you know, I'm not the biggest gamer, but I had an Alien. I bought an Alien game that was essentially like Doom, but Alien.
Yeah,
and back in must have been the mid-90s or something. Is that the one? No.
This one's from like 2013.
Oh,
something
okay.
like that.
Because I found that one quite scary. Back in the
That'll be Alien.
Day.
That'll probably be Alien Trilogy. You're playing on the
that sounds
PlayStation
familiar,
or something.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got a PS4. Is it right?
I've
PS5?
got I've PS3. I think actually is all I've got these days. Or Switch, but
You can buy Alien Isolation for PS3, mate. I'll get it for. It's cheap. I'll get it for you next time I see it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, you'll shit your pants playing that. It is terrifying. God.
okay. I like the sound of that.
Because you can't kill the alien. You've got to run away from him or hide. Oh my God. Yeah. So many times screaming at the TV.
Throw the switches. How long before the ship goes?
10 minutes.
No bullshit.
We ain't out of here in 10 minutes. We won't need no rocket to fly through space.
Wait, because obviously the escape thing doesn't have enough for all of them to escape, right? Or it can fit 3.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I can't remember if I said a line. But if it was like, okay, you can only fit 2 people on there, you just, after a couple of days, you'd get out, they'd get in, go to sleep, then get out.
Yeah,
just
but
alternate,
you could
you
do
know.
that. Yeah, you'd age more slowly. In my reading on the history of the Nostromo, and again, I don't know if this is canon or what. But
Well, yeah, it could be borderline fan fiction.
exactly, yeah, it's on the Alien Wiki. So I mean, who knows? But according to that, anyway, there was meant to be another escape pod, but it was found to be faulty, or no, it was accidentally damaged, I think. Whilst they were loading to head back, so was left by. So there would have been more safety pods, but so this isn't the Nostromo. Is this? So what are we looking at here?
That's the escape pod.
That's the escape pod under the Nostromo itself,
Yeah.
not the thing. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've never been able to get a handle on the scale of the Nostromo either. Because it's
Where you only kind of see, like, you see the full shape of it, like, at the beginning. But then the rest of it's kind of the undercarriage you see as
Yeah.
it passes over camera, a bit like this, a Star Destroyer sort of thing. Or you've got the piece that comes off that goes to the planet, then reattaches. So if you don't know the behind the scenes stuff of the film, you can kind of see the whole scale of the miniature. What's interesting actually, how the planet looked in the raw material. It looked quite bright, like a 50s movie with when they go on like a planet and it's kind of overly lit.
Yeah.
And they've heavily graded it, at the time chemically, sort of make it just like very dark and with heavy shadows and sort of hidden a lot of it with just like the wind machines and low lighting. This bit coming up, because you see, it's one of my favourite shots in the film. It only happens for it's on screen for a second or two. You see, it's Alien side profile as he moves slowly mid shot to Veronica Cartwright. It's such a great little moment, and the score just goes full up, like classic score. Because you don't see much of the alien as he kind of approaches them and corners them. Obviously, because you don't see how Veronica dies off screen. You hear her screaming, and it's like that weird chatter laugh, which I think, is that the alien? I don't know, but he obviously Yafak just gets knocked down by its tail. Then he just gets like pushed to the wall, and big mouthpiece comes out and gets him.
I wonder how much of this was shot handheld.
This is handheld, isn't it?
Yeah. I get the feeling a lot of it was shot handheld.
I think they had like maybe 4 or 5 cameras on the film, because they shot like multiple cameras for the chest burster sequence.
Yeah. Because they'd originally tried to shoot, I think, like multi-camera, like almost like a TV show with like flat lighting, hadn't they? To just speed production up. But that was never going to work.
No, especially with how tight the sets were. I think, Yeah, that's massive set. I mean, actually, because we mentioned Sigourney being cast very late into the game, her screen test was actually on the sets which they were building. I know she mentioned that she thought she was allergic to the cat, Jonesy, and she started crying about that. When she got slapped by Veronica, she started crying. There's a lot of blubbing from Sigourney on this film, Just thinking she's not doing it right, she's going to get fired,
Well, again, they actors always say this, but apparently when Veronica Cartwright did slap her, it was super extra hard because Ridley Scott hadn't been impressed with the first couple of takes, so they... and apparently she just lamped her without Sigourney expecting it.
She went into her hand, not knowing she's going to hit her that hard. Do you remember I've got the cat sequence there? No, the director of photography said when he saw the preview screening, I think I may have mentioned this before in other commentary, because it's always a great little bit of trivia, when he said he had doing the screening where Ripley goes back for the cat, he just said he heard his like African American shout out, "Leave the fucking cat!" It's a great moment. Because you just knew the audiences were so invested. Just like, get out of there,
Ridley Scott's always quick to justify that, isn't he? Every interview I've seen with him talking about Alien, he somehow manages to mention that he'd go back for his dog. So it's completely believable.
Yeah, you would. My poor cat, Oh, look at this. Okay, so coming up, see the alien sort of looks up, and then he gets the attention of Yafat. Oh, God. He hasn't touched it yet. So he whacks him down. This is it when he moves in a minute towards her, and it's incredible shot.
I love this. The original trailer for Alien, which is essentially just that shot of Ripley running through the corridors, is so good.
Oh, I've got him. And then the next shot of the alien. Here we go. Moves towards her. Very slow. It's so good. I mean, I know we can Alien Covenant when it essentially repeats a lot of what happens in Alien, but the choice of shots of the alien in the new film was so well done. It was kind of like, I suppose, Ridley Scott returning to this sequence to really give it what he could do with modern technology. And it's flawless in execution. And every shot, if you pause it, it looks incredible. But it's just, I think it just frustrated people that it was, again, you're seeing something you've seen before, but just done on a sort of higher budget, you know. But that's the kind of thing, the thing with us, with Alien fans, that you kind of want some of the same, but when they do it, you get annoyed they're not done something different. That's why everyone kind of, when it comes back to Alien franchise, it's always like, aliens, it's got to be like aliens, more colonial marines, more, you know, smart guns and pulse rifles. But they've already done that.
Yeah, they've done that. Yeah, and you're not going to do it better.
Look, my Alien reviews are done quite well with views on YouTube. I get a lot of fans submitting their short movies on aliens, which are always appreciated. But when they do show them to me, it's just them dressed up as colonial marines behind green screen or blue screen and just shooting stuff. I'm like, where's the story here? It's just like cosplay gone mad, you know. And they just filmed it because they just want to recreate themselves being a marine and shooting these aliens.
And there are so many of those movies as well, as I learned digging into the Aliens rip-offs, the Dead Space animated, when the Starship Troopers animated. For some reason, a lot of them are animated, and there is literally nothing more boring than watching a platoon of Marines just shooting constantly at an alien of some sort, and that it does seem to be what the rip-offs do.
Yeah, they just take what people think is really cool and just do it for the whole film. You know, you need motivation, you need story, you need characters who are developed to actually get invested. If you're going to have a big action sequence and you to care about it and want to watch it over and over again, that's why Aliens works, because you're invested in those characters who are really fucking cool, and not just like, oh, we've landed on this planet that's got aliens on it, let's just shoot them for 10 minutes. The end.
Yeah.
You know. That's that lady again. This week's winning bingo numbers from Superman 3.
Don't breathe it in, Sigourney. It's highly carcinogenic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, that was... I was trying to remember what one of the other theories was about John Finch, the guy who...
Oh, yeah, yes.
It was the smoke. Possibly, potentially, a couple of people anyway have said that the diesel smoke brought on a bronchitis. No, this is what he says, actually. He says it was nothing to do with anything other than the smoke, which gave him bronchitis, some kind of bronchial attack that he'd never had before, and hospitalised him. That's what he says, anyway. But
well, yeah, because they had to Ripley said they had to literally carry him out of the chair.
Yeah.
So I probably think that the diabetes thing probably has a bit more weight to it. If other people have said that more frequently, but maybe they're just getting information from Ridley or other production members who said, "Oh, he's like."
Everyone's got their own agenda as well, haven't they? He's not going to want to say, "Yeah, I had diabetes, but I didn't tell anyone because I knew they wouldn't hire me." He's not going to want to say that. He's going to want to blame it on the production.
Yeah. Oh, I like the strobe effect. You know, I'm not a huge fan of strobe effects in films, but because the strobing is more spacing between the timing, it's not off-putting. Because some films I've seen, like if you watch the newer Universal Soldier films, I think the second one they did after the one where Van Damme came back, he came back for the second one again. I think it's got Scott Adkins in it.
Yeah,
the strobing in that is awful. It's one of the worst strobing I've ever seen. It's like it will give you a headache instantly. Yeah, it's not fun.
It completely fits the aesthetic here as well, because everything's not only is everything breaking, but it's all about obscuring your vision, isn't it? Really, this whole it's either too dark to quite see where the alien is, or it's too smoky to quite see, or the edits are too fast, or the camera's moving too fast, or something.
See that shot there where she's running around. You can see it's a wide shot of the exterior. That feels like it's part of the refinery because it's so big.
Yeah.
Scale. So I think there is interaction with it.
Yeah.
With it.
And and looking at the escape ship, the scale of it compared to what I've imagined the scale of the Nostromo itself to be, it just doesn't. And there's another shot as well when Kane's body is ejected, and it flies underneath, and there's a huge expanse of ship that it flies under. And based on what we know about the Nostromo, it just seems far too big for that to be the Nostromo. So is there a chance that the escape pod is actually on the refinery or the thing being towed rather than the Nostromo?
Yeah. I think it's to be on the refinery, I would say. But someone will disagree.
Because I think the Nostromo is meant to be 3 decks high, isn't it? I think.
Oh, yeah. Weirdly, because in the video game Alien Isolation, you have multiple floors and you have other people working there. There's loads of other people. So it would make sense if it was an operating refinery that had a crew part of it. But this is just shown as like as you say it very early on, like a tug, just moving it from one place to another. But yes, it has quite a lot of floors to it.
Handy space flamethrower. I'm sure there's a reason why they'd have them, but it's always amused me.
They should have like, what else could you use? Use a fire axe, just throw everything at it. Loose change.
Weirdly, there are fire axes in the escape pod. I remember noticing because I've got a feeling that they like change in. I think there's a continuity snafu with them. Sometimes there's one, and then the next shot there's 3, and so on.
And she's going back for the cat. She got her priorities straight.
Don't know. It is more effective when it's Newt she's going back for, though, isn't it? It's more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because like the guilt of leaving a child who'd already lost her parents and her brother, and then she's already attached herself to you as a surrogate mother, and to sort of go, oh man, I've got to go into the alien hive, try and find her. I don't think I've got the time. 20 minutes I've got. God.
That ties in as well with Cameron's increased interest in the themes of reproduction and motherhood and so on, which are introduced in this film, but aren't really taken very far when you think about it. There's not an awful lot of exploration of them, but Cameron really liked that idea, didn't he, and really ran with it.
Oh, yeah. A family bond, and that was kind of why people were so upset come Alien 3, where it's like, no, we're going back to the brutal reality of it all.
We're just going to throw everything out the window that we've...
Yeah. Which, I think probably when I was younger, I was kind of more annoyed that they got rid of, like, Hicks and Newt, but if you read the original script for Alien 3 that kept them alive, it ain't great. So...
Yeah,
it's not a good script.
I suppose they'd been written into a corner, really, hadn't they, with 3 survivors at the end of Aliens. Yeah. If you're going to do a direct sequel, it really doesn't help to be starting from that point.
Yeah, it's tough, yeah. That's good. There's little shots there where they got the exteriors, it's like front projecting onto a model. I mean,
yeah.
Amazing. Purge. And you see, I remember I think the guy did some of the designs of the graphics there because they were reused in Blade Runner when the spinners, I think, take off. It's got the similar graphics. He was like, oh wow, they've reused it.
I remember reading somewhere that it was a big problem getting them done. God, where did I read that? I can't remember now.
1979 or 78, trying to do sort of computer graphics must be very difficult, trying to find something that would do that right. Because most of the time they just animate it to make it look like a
exactly.
computer,
As I think you mentioned in your Never Say Never Again retrospective.
It's animated. Mad, isn't it? It's so inventive, but just like, what? You did it that way?
Yeah. It's like all the graphics in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV series. The books, they're all hand-drawn animations.
Yeah.
God knows how long that took.
This is all like slit scan technology for the explosion with a combination of artwork, basically.
Yeah. There's a lot of 2001: A Space Odyssey effects techniques being used.
That's
here.
slit scan. Yeah, that's when the A bit is a bit dodgy. It's like the fire, which is literally this kind of flat things just being like that. It's kind of a weird explosion, but hey. It's fine. Now there was, the last couple of months on social media it was floating around that Ridley Scott, in a commentary for Alien, said that they had to paint over her pubic hair. Cost a fortune because she wouldn't shave it, right? Because the close-ups in the underwear. They had to get someone to paint it all, around the exposed parts of her legs. And in the official commentary, what's the theatrical cut? He doesn't mention that at all. So maybe it's in the director's cut commentary, but I'd never heard that piece before. And I must have, because I've gone through them. So I don't know.
He's done 2 commentaries, I think, hasn't he? Because there's one he does. I watched the one I watched last night. It's my old. I don't know which release is which, but that's my Blu-ray set. And weirdly, I tried to watch the older commentary first, but it wouldn't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't play. It's like shaded out or something. And the menu, I couldn't figure that out at all. So I tried the other one, and it's.
You tried to watch the director's cut then?
I can't remember which one it was.
Okay, it will be shaded out on one of them because it doesn't. See, maybe he hasn't done a commentary for the director's cut then.
But the commentary that I did listen to is clearly constructed from 2 separate Ridley Scott commentaries, because there's one which he's doing with Sigourney Weaver, which has quite poor quality sound.
Yes.
And then there's one which he does on his own, it's kind of like the edited highlights of those 2. So I wonder if there's like have you got the Laserdisc? Is there like a Laserdisc commentary or something?
No, they never did a commentary for the Laserdisc. They did it. I think they did a commentary for the first DVD release, the one that had an hour-long documentary called The Legacy of Alien or something like that. But then they did, obviously, the quadrilogy set, and I think that came with a commentary standalone with Ridley and one with cast and crew. Just with the cast and Ridley. So it's made up of bits. It's multiple recordings, and they've put them all together.
Yeah. I hate it when they do that.
No, I know, it's not good. But they didn't pop up in terms of, the sort of issue with pubic hair.
You'd think it'd be more practical just to give her a bigger set of underwear or something, or
big like classic mum pants.
Yeah.
Which women probably prefer to wear.
Well, yeah, and they do such a great job of not. I mean, fine, she's wearing very revealing clothes here, but she's not sexual. This is not a sexualized thing. I don't think it's.
No, this is showing her vulnerability.
Yeah.
She's been stripped down to basically nearly practically nude, and you've got an alien just sitting there watching her, and the hand goes, It's so good how it blends into the scenery. It's mad, isn't it? Because it looks like pipes.
That actually made me jump slightly.
Rob had forgotten.
I haven't watched this since last night.
Rob's memory, he's forgotten already. I love this bit because it's like, because in a sense that the alien is somewhat blind in a way. Because I know this one, because the skull, the piece over its head, it's got a human skull, hasn't it? And you can see the eyes, like the eye sockets, where the thing goes over the top. And they got rid of that for Cameron's, Sam Winston redesign. But with this, he it would never get a sense that we all thought the alien was kind of blind, and he's testing, he's feeling around it, and then he sees his mouth open, and then it closes again. It's like it's testing what's around it.
Yeah.
That's kind of my theory.
No, yeah, and there's a long-standing theory, which I think is a fan theory rather than anything Giger's said, about the shape of its head being the way it is because it contains some form of sensory apparatus that we're not, some echolocation or something that humans don't have.
Yeah.
And this was all a last-minute addition, wasn't it? This whole, what Ridley Scott calls the fourth act. The film was originally meant to end on the explosion, and he had to go to the studio and said, "Give me some more money because I've got an idea."
But he has to do it so constantly watching him, but changing at the same time, and then slowly get out and then shoot it. Because I mean, it's like either it's not trying to attack her yet because it knows it's got nowhere to go. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
Or it's the idea that you can't really see her at the moment. But it's such a, obviously the bits coming up where she's got the helmet on, there's shots where she's looking at it. There's iconic shots in the film. You see like a press photo or a lobby card. It's always Ripley with the helmet on.
Yeah.
You know. Have you seen the film Outland with Sean Connery?
Yeah.
I mean, that feels to me it's the same universe.
It's
as Alien.
exactly, yeah. It absolutely feels like the same universe and the same style and the same everything. You can really easily believe that. And also, Ridley Scott's always said that this exists in the same universe as Blade Runner, hasn't he? Albeit at different stages. He's said like he can imagine the crew of the Nostromo getting back to Earth and heading down to the kind of bars you see in the background in Blade Runner. And there is, those three films, always in my mind, have kind of lived together, more so than Predator has lived with Alien, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Because like Outland could be like if it just gave one hint to like a ship called Nostromo or something, or Wayland in the background, you wouldn't question. Oh, it's part of the same world because it looks exactly the same. I think it's more down to the director Peter Hyams going, "Oh, I love the look of Alien.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do this with a western in space," which no one's really going to argue about. And it's also another Alan Ladd production, so
yeah.
Because also we never mentioned really because earlier on in the case of this, the history of the film was like Dan O'Bannon felt that they only made this because they had Alien on their desk and they want another Star Wars movie. Yeah, and they had it.
It is unbelievable how often that happens in the kind of movies I'm often looking into, the kind of rip-offs and the movies that were inspired by a blockbuster. It is uncanny how basically every sci-fi script on file at a major studio got made in the couple of years after Star Wars.
Yeah, it's mad.
Battlestar Galactica had been hanging around for a couple of years as well. I've forgotten the producer's name now responsible for it, but he'd had that concept ready to go for a couple of years and no one was interested. And then
Star Wars came out and John Dykstra shot all the miniature effects.
Yeah, some of it with equipment I'm not going to say stolen, but some of it with equipment he'd thieved from George Lucas.
Those motion control rigs are expensive. But yeah, all that footage would end up being relicensed into other films, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and then some.
Love the aliens like, hello! It's like, boom! Open the door. Love the only gun she's got is like a grapple hook or something, like a Batman grapple gun. It's like Batman's gun, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a proper grappling cannon thing. Again,
I love
really
how
useful on a spaceship.
I know, yeah. Because I was climbing here. He has no idea what it is. That's water. It doesn't
Yeah,
look like water.
I hadn't realised that until watching the commentary.
Ridley's like, it's plasma. It's like,
When you know it's water, it looks really obviously like it's water, though, doesn't it?
yeah. Like, he's literally been a shot because he's going to literally hit the cameraman. But you see that shot there, it's spherical.
Yeah.
It's not... Because Ridley said it was a technical issue. So I think they shot that and someone's off camera maybe. You can probably see them on the right. Or something's given it away that it is actually a set. It's not space, whatever. So they've had to... But you couldn't punch in because then that would cut off the shape of the ship, right?
Right,
Cut off what's
yeah.
on the left or right. So they've had to do spherical to stretch it out.
I wonder, yeah.
That's what I think.
It kind of works, though. I think it feels like there's so much energy in that shot because the engines are just fired up. Somehow my brain just goes, yeah, well, that would distort the picture.
Cargo and ship destroyed.
Also, the lovely kind of famous line she has at the end. Also, it's quite a sad way in Alien 3 where they end with this, don't they? That line. The sort of, yeah. She goes, last survivor in Nostromo signing off at the end of Alien 3. Well, theatrical. No, both cuts, I think they do that. So the end music here, which is lying in the hypersleep chamber, which is, again, another licensed piece of music.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, we've done a few of these commentaries, and I don't tend to get completely involved in the film because I've seen it so many times. We've just watched it recently to research We're Talking, but this just sucks you in like nothing else.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's moments where me and you just stop talking. just to look at the visuals and be sucked into it. And that's in the case of Aliens. There's always moments where you just got cameras moving around a corridor, so you can't reflect too much on something like that. But yeah, would you say Alien is the best out of the Call trilogy, or would you refer more to Aliens?
It's always been my personal favourite. I mean, I don't, whether it's a better, I think it's kind of perfect, isn't it? I think you can poke the odd hole in Aliens here and there. I adore Aliens, don't get me wrong, but for me, it's just perfect. It's one of those perfect films, and it's what more do you want?
I think I've always said to people, like, I think Aliens is more of a digestible movie you can put on any time, where Alien is a little bit more.
It's a commitment, isn't it? It's a commitment.
Yeah. And but you are heavily rewarded by the end, and it is. I think Ridley said it's his best looking film. I'd maybe argue Blade Runner is, but I think this is just for a film that's made for such a relatively low budget.
Yeah.
Every area looks so expensive, and the pacing of it. It's the score what Jerry does provide excels the visuals and creates a threatening world, a threatening universe of space that is no one had really kind of experienced before, and just the kind of seeing the Nostromo go towards this giant planet, just isolating moments.
The isolation is like nothing else. It's one of my favourite sort of genres. If it is this a small group of people in a confined environment being picked off, and as Ridley Scott said, he kind of sees it as his take on Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians, and it is a lot like that. And those films always have a sense of isolation, but nothing does it as effectively as this. And it's not just because they're in space. There's other, in Event Horizon, they're a small group of people trapped in space dealing with a thing that's killing them one at a time. But there's no, I don't feel the same sense of desolation, I suppose, around you, that there's nothing alive for millions and millions of miles, nothing that's going to help you, nothing that wants to do anything other than destroy you.
Yeah. I think it put a cap on the genre, didn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's been difficult to beat it.
Yeah.
Ever since, and it's been like 40 years. It's been 40 years of it,
And they're still remaking it as well. I mean, there's that Life movie with Ryan Reynolds. The one that Francis Ford Coppola made. There's a Russian one from a couple of years ago, which is almost. It's just they're still remaking it.
Yeah, and people still have a massive appetite for it, but there's nothing that is really defining it. These new ones. I mean, Prometheus could have had that position to do that, but I don't think it quite excelled in that area. But it's over 40 years old and it still works a treat. So yeah, that's a testament to the talent and filmmakers.
As you said at the beginning, it's a legitimate masterpiece. It's not a genre favourite like a lot of the things we've covered. It's just a proper masterpiece.
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. That's the end of the commentary. Hope you enjoyed it. Me and Rob will be back with another one soon. I think it will be on Terminator 2.
Cool.
Yeah. So we can alternate, see? Terminator series, Alien, and then I suppose we could do RoboCop as well, because they've all got sequels and they all get generally worse.
hang on a minute.
Which make, apart from Aliens and there's a lot to like about RoboCop 2.
Yeah, RoboCop 2's got a lot going for it. RoboCop 3...
After Terminator 2, though, it doesn't get particularly good.
No, that's a good... Yeah, the 3... In fact, part 3 of all of these franchises are a bit disappointing.
Yeah, they really are. Well, my friend will be annoyed because my friend's obsessed with Alien 3, so he'll be annoyed by that.
Well, it's better than RoboCop 3, Jesus.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, folks, take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.
See you soon.